Hey all, Ron here from Military Images Magazine with a new episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. You know, when I'm researching day in and day out, it's easy for me to overlook that Civil War infantry regiments were composed of young men, mostly kids who were far from home and nervous and scared and full of anxiety and later boredom as they were getting adjusted to life in camp and campaigning. When they were in these places, they were looking for fun things to do to relieve the stresses of a citizen soldier's life. The officers who led them were sometimes not much older and they suffered the same anxiety, the same concerns, and they were looking for ways to just have fun sometimes and to relieve the anxiety or just alleviate the boredom in camp. They turned to various amusements: poker and other card games, dice, dominoes, chess, checkers, horseshoes, tag, races, and other feats of strength. And there's another one: snowball fights, or perhaps more accurately, snowball battles. I found a report while I was researching today of one such fight involving a Union regiment. And as I dug around and went down the research rabbit hole, I found a couple more. I found a Confederate one too, and I'll share that in another video. But first, in this video, I want to share with you the three Union examples just to give you a sense of the competitive nature and the crazy fun that these guys were having. The first example was reported on January 30th, 1862, from Camp DeCourcy outside Lexington, Kentucky. It involves the 23rd Kentucky Infantry, and you're going to hear two names mentioned in this account: Colonel Marcellus Mundy and Lieutenant Colonel John Putnam Jackson. Both men survived the Snowball attack and the war and went on to serve as governors of Kentucky. So let's share this first account. It states, "This morning, January 30th, 1862, on awakening from our slumbers, our eyes were gladdened with the sight of the ground covered with snow. After the breakfast, the boys commenced snowballing, and before dinner, every commissioned officer had received a good pelting, not excepting all the field officers. Our two colonels looked more like snowmen than human beings. It was kept up till about 3 o'clock, when the colonel ordered the bugle to be sounded for the regiment to fall into line without guns and accoutrements and in fatigue dress. We were all puzzled to know what was to be done when we were marched into the woods near the camp and divided into two armies, the right wing representing one army and the left wing representing the other. We were then drawn up in line of battle, and after throwing out skirmishers, the colonel ordered us to load at will when every man commenced making snowballs. After 2 or 3 rounds each, we were ordered to come to attention. Lieutenant Colonel Jackson had command of the right wing and Colonel Mundy of the left. The bugle then sounded forward march when the wings advanced toward each other. When within 30 paces, they commenced throwing snowballs. They fought 1 round when the bugle sounded to cease firing and to rally into line. Colonel Mundy's wing retiring, with Lieutenant Colonel Jackson a prisoner. After making a few snowballs, we went at them again and fought about 10 minutes, the right wing taking major prisoner. Next round, the left wing captured Captain Voigt and the adjutant." So there's that first account from the 23rd Kentucky Infantry. The second example dates to February 25th, 1863, a little over a year later, in the camp of the 26th New Jersey Infantry. In this attack, this battle, about 400 Jersey boys took on 600 Vermonters in a pitched battle. You'll hear a mention of Colonel Andrew J. Morrison, who had a serious drinking problem. A few months after the Snowball fight, during the Chancellorsville campaign, he led his regiment in the wrong direction and was relieved of duty. He was reportedly inebriated at the time. Morrison filed an appeal on the grounds of his inexperience with the infantry and argued that he had previously served in the cavalry as a mercenary in Europe. Morrison somehow managed to get back into the army as colonel of the 3rd New Jersey Cavalry, a regiment nicknamed the Butterflies because of their flamboyant hussar-inspired uniforms. So let me share this account from the 26th New Jersey and an unidentified Vermont regiment. This one is titled Snowballing in the Army. A letter from the 26th New Jersey Regiment, dated the 25th, ultimate, it's February, states that they were at Camp Fairview and had just been defeated in a snowball contest with a Vermont regiment. About 1,000 men were engaged, 400 Jersey men against 600 Vermonters. Before entering on the engagement, skirmishers were thrown out on both sides, and the conflict begun with colors flying and the band playing Rory O'Moore. Colonel Morrison gallantly led his men, ordering them to charge, close up en masse, and etc. Then, for some time, the issue was doubtful, the air being filled with the flying balls and each side cheering lustily. The line of the 26th at last wavered, and, though the reserves were brought up, they were of no avail. Colonel Morrison and other officers were taken prisoner. An embankment in the rear of the 26th was captured, and the balls prepared for the defense were used against them. The colors of the 26th were also taken, and their headquarters seized by the victorious Vermonters amid deafening cheers. The prisoners were subsequently released. So there you have the account from the 26th New Jersey and a Vermont regiment. The third and final example involves 2 more Vermont regiments, the 2nd and the 6th Infantries. It dates to March 23rd, 1864, again, about another year after the last account. This version was written by a member of the 2nd Vermont using the pseudonym Anti-Rebel. In it, you'll hear a mention of Major John S. Tyler, who went on to become Lieutenant Colonel of the 2nd Vermont and suffered a mortal wound at the Battle of the Wilderness in May 1864, just a few months after this fight. So let me read the story. It's titled Snowballing in the Army. And it starts, "We had some glorious sport this forenoon, snowballing. The weather was fine and the snow just right. The 2nd and 6th Regiment had a regular pitched battle, which resulted in the discomfiture of the latter. A squad of our boys, principally from Company C, went up to the 6th and stumped the crowd for a snowball fight. The 6th came out and drove them back. It was now evident that the squad from the 2nd must have reinforcements or call themselves whipped. Some of our officers, eager for fun, collected quite a force and, headed by our major, we rallied to the assistance of the defeated party. Snowballs flew thick and fast, some of the foremost on each side getting completely plastered over with them, head, ears, neck, and all. A reserve of reinforcements coming up in the nick of time virtually decided the contest. They all charged on the 6th, shouting and snowballing to their utmost. The 6th was obliged to fall back, fighting valorously as they retreated. We saw our advantage and followed up till we drove them clear back to their camp. We started to return, and they attempted to follow us, but we faced about again, and they saw it wouldn't do and acknowledged that it was enough. Both regiments left off snowballing and went to shaking hands with each other. All were good-natured, and no one lost his temper. We claimed that we captured their colors and 3 or 4 of their officers. Each regiment had a flag improvised for the occasion. They admitted defeat, but think our force was the strongest. It was a lively sport, charging and snowballing, capturing and recapturing officers, that was ruinous for army coats, and the wear and tear of clothing in some of our encounters was immense. I haven't had time to get a complete list of the killed and wounded, But as our surgeon was on the ground, I am confident that all the wounded were well cared for. Signed, Anti-Rebel. So there you have the stories of 3 snowball fights in the Union Army taking place in 1862, 1863, and 1864. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail.